first order of business is to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At the outset of the meeting, there'll be opportunities as the meeting goes on, but for the public to have input. But did anybody specifically have anything they wish to bring up before we start the regular meeting? None. Excuse me?
Public comment period. So
Yeah.
do that right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to next. And okay, we have with us Lindsay.
That's me.
Okay, we have with us Lindsay Esser. I hope I pronounced your name right. Candidate for state senator, and if you'd like, I guess you'd like to introduce yourself to the.
Very briefly, just so I could get a quick few minutes in between and, get a face-to-face time with you guys out here in Barrie since, so I'm from Munson. I was raised in Munson. I decided to step up and run this election cycle against Ann Gobi. My platform is very simple. I'm absolutely adamantly opposed to the sanctuary city bill that Ann helped to write and co-sponsor. And I'm also big on the fiscal issues and the infrastructure stuff down here. More from the police officer standpoint, the schools, and the roads that we're having issues with in the Western Mass side of this district. So we need to be able to sustain some vetoes out of Boston, I feel like, and start to work comprehensively on that side of the house. And that also ties into the sanctuary side as well from a money standpoint. So that's my agenda, very brief. But again, I just wanted to get a face-to-face time with you and let you know who I am and where I'm at and kind of where we're running for. So that's that. I appreciate the brief 30 seconds that I'll take up of your evening.
Any opinion on the Second Amendment?
So I will be very honest with you. I'm strong on the second. I'm a veteran. My husband's actually active duty Marines. He's home on leave for Easter. So we are strong on the second, but I do think that there needs to be some comprehensive reform on the mental side of the house, the background checks. We've really got to start looking at the human element part of the Second Amendment. Do I want to take away people's rights to own weapons? Absolutely not. But do I want to look at things and see where the parts need to move and how we keep communities safe? Yes, I do. Do I feel like that's necessarily yanking guns out of people's hands? No. Because in my opinion, there's two things you need to have. Respect for human life and respect for the weapon in your hand. If you don't have those two things, that's a problem. And that's kind of where my stance is on gun control.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Greg, if you didn't, I think something was wrong. I would have been a little confused if you didn't.
I'm glad you made it in.
Yeah. So thanks for your time. It's again, a lot of doors, 28 towns. It's a huge district. So we're hitting about 1,800 doors a week, and we're cruising.
I hope you do well.
Yes. So my next big one is my father and I'm not sure if it was maybe conceived over some fermented grapes, decided to do the Athol River Rat Race. Because that sounded like a wonderful idea that night. So now we're doing it. So that'll be fun.
That'll be fun for us to watch.
Hope you stay up as...
We watched the YouTube videos and I was like, oh, what did we do?
Good luck. Stay dry.
Yeah, you're not staying dry.
The water is
fall
very.
in, just remember, wait to breathe till you get above the water.
I was in the Navy, so I feel like I might be okay.
All right, you
but
got
I
a
was
little
Navy, so I was more in the desert than I was on a ship. So.
Yes.
But if anybody wants any further information, Greg is my contact. We're on Facebook. We have a website, and then we do have an event in Barrie this weekend. We rented out the upper deck for a dinner, so we will be there on Saturday from I believe 6:30 to about 9. Yep. So if you guys are welcome to join, not free of cost for anybody in the room.
You'll have time to talk to people if they want to come meet you in person then?
Absolutely. That's
Great.
what it's about.
What a good idea.
Yeah, so please, get to know me a little bit, give me a chance. I am running on the Republican ticket, but I do have a heart. So, it makes me a little bit different than some other people that run on this ticket, which is okay. So.
Sam?
Please, Charlie, if I speak at it, you let me know. But this town is having difficulty with some public organizations that feel they have certain rights to come into the town and pay limited taxes. I'm speaking about the Stetson School.
It's a very hot topic in this area.
And does not appear that there's logic in what they believe that they have the rights to. And I was just wondering how you feel about this program, because it's not only hurting Barry, but it's damaging lots of other towns.
It is.
So I was just wondering what your opinion is on that. And I know it's kind of tough to ask someone like this.
No, it's not. It's not tough at all.
On the hoof, so to speak.
That's okay. That's part of why I'm here. So I think the Stetson School is multifaceted. You've got the tax issues going on. You also have the way that they are funded, in my opinion, is a bit of a problem. And then you also have the curriculum issues that are going. And what in the research I have done on the school, which I will admit is a little bit limited at this point, from a numbers perspective on student enrollment, they're pulling. And I'm seeing a lot of money that's being funneled into that school and not a lot of things that are coming out of that school. And I think that's a problem. So my response to you is I do not have a comprehensive answer at this point. It is on my radar. I do think the tax issue is a big problem because I'm seeing a lot of subsidies that I don't agree with. But I do not have a comprehensive direct answer to your question at this point. So I'm not gonna lie to you on that. You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, well, we'd like to thank you for coming in.
No, thank you for your time. I appreciate
And
it.
appreciate it, and I guess we'll be seeing you around over the summer and
Oh, yes, you will.
Fall.
I get to know this space very well.
I encourage people to go see you at the upper deck. You said 7 to 9 Saturday?
Right, so I'll be there early, just because I like to have a chance to talk to people without big crowds as well. So.
Gives them all time to think stuff up to ask you too.
Well, and that as well. So you'll notice I'm one of those candidates where my speech is consistently different because whatever's going on in that town, it's not the same that's going on in the town next to it. So I like to have directed issues as opposed to a blanket issue. Because in Munson, we need bridges and we're closing one of our schools, right? In Barry, you need roads and you need some other things. You don't necessarily have to worry about the individual school systems being closed, right? So my tax issues and my financial issues in Munson do not affect Barry necessarily, right? On the lower level type stuff. So
Not as different as you think though in some places.
right. So that's, but you will hear a lot of that. So thanks, I appreciate it. It was
Okay,
nice
thank
meeting
you.
Coming in?
Thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
Yep. Okay.
It was surprising. Like I said, I had my nephew home. He just got back from coastal. I just had him out for the weekend. I didn't expect him. He came into Maine to his house. They came down.
Okay, we have minutes to approve. It's the pleasure of the board.
I would like to thumb through them a little more.
Hmm?
I didn't really read them ahead of time.
Okay,
My
that's
tablet
fine.
was dead and I wasn't going to do it on my phone, but if we could put it off to a little later in the meeting, I'll get the time to go through
Yep,
these.
that's fine. It's
While we're
fine.
driving through other issues, so I'll multitask a little.
Okay. Okay, we have a discussion of the CPC project here in Barry, and Andrew, I guess, Dean, you might as well come back up into the hot seat and...
You know, it was almost a year ago today.
What?
A year ago today. It was like, I think the third of the last year when we were going through
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing.
There
Anyway,
probably wasn't any snow on the ground last year, right?
no, I don't remember there was snow on it. So, let's see, a couple things. As you may or may not know, the Cannabis Control Commission today at 12 o'clock, and I posted this last night, at 12 o'clock, they're gonna start taking applications from the equity applicants, which CPC is. They had a little computer glitch, so it turns out I was applicant number 19. And I told Andrew I wanted to be number 1, but I was 19. So anyway, so it's moving forward on that side. On Saturday, we had our meeting at the town hall.
Mhm.
We had about 25 people there. You know, a lot of them were people I called and said, I was trying to fill it. It was a good discussion. The discussion kind of, for the most part, moved away from, you know, the idea of cannabis to, this is what the building is going to look like. You know, we have a schematic of that now. You know, there was a good size blow-up site plan. So afterwards, we offered a tour. And we had Brad Reiner go up. We had Frank LaRange go up, and then of course John Cuddy came up on his block. So it went really well, I think, especially for Frank. I won't speak for him, but I think going up and seeing this site for somebody who is vested and lives in the community and does want what's best, he was able to say, oh, this isn't, you know, what I thought it was. When you realize that kid couldn't come up and pay us $20 and at the door and buy pot, I think it gave him some comfort.
So all the prison inmates don't hang out there, you know? Yeah.
So in order to get this thing built, to start building this thing, we've got to do three things. We have 3 things left. We have this community host agreement that we talked about at the last meeting. And we'll get back to that in just 1 second. Then I can now with that, having held that meeting, submit a full package to the Cannabis Control Commission so they can start reviewing the license, which should take 60 to 90 days. We've done it before. So that puts us, you know, right about the summer. So with regard to the host agreement, we had the discussion about what the new regs say. You know, they clearly spell it out. They say 3%, 5 years. We've already agreed on that. That's not an issue. The question that came up, and Andrew brought it up, and it was a question that we brought up, was like, well, what happens to these other agreements that we sat down and talked about? We checked with legal counsel in Boston, and they seem to think that, well, you know, you can do the 5 years that the state, you know, maxes you out at, but nothing precludes you from giving a donation to the town after that for, you know, subsequent years. It's my intention to do this 5-year period, and then, like I said, continue to honor that perpetual agreement that we had. So we have to work that out. I don't know how that's going to look contractually. On that side of it, given that this contract here, I need to actually move forward. I'm hoping that with the changes that we made, you might consider at this point, you know, taking a look at signing this, and then Andrew and I will continue to figure out how to do that on the $30,000 a year. Having said that, I brought Dick with me tonight, and I'm sorry, drive on. And so, as a good faith gesture, the Barry Senior Center is really personal to Catherine, really personal to her, for a lot of reasons. You know, for years I'd hitch rides with her. We'd go deliver Meals on Wheels, and we'd see where some seniors in this community, how far out they are. And you know, she saw with her mom, who was kind of house ridden, as she lacked that social thing. And in Catherine's studies, you know, getting her master's in gerontology, it's pretty clear that seniors need social interaction, otherwise they decline in the past. So a while ago, Dick, when we were first talking about this last year, and we came and said, listen, we'll give you $25,000. We wanted to go to the senior center, and you know, we actually kind of looked at it and said, well, all right, we'll give it to the town, and you guys will deem where it goes. Given the dynamics of what this is, and whatever that donation is going to look like moving forward. This was Catherine's idea. So Dick came to us and, you know, said the senior center is really desperately in need of a van, a transportation van, to go get these people, to bring them to the senior center, to have them interact. And we've had this discussion ongoing for, you know, 8, 9 months that, okay, so somehow this money will try to get it in this original contract. Money will try to get it to you guys, but it's not quite that easy. So he took the time, he went to Salvador, he got an estimate. We looked at it, it's a little over $32,000, pretty close. So Catherine and I talked, and we said, all right, how about this, as a gesture? Once we get the licensing, the 3 things we need, so we need the license, we need the HCA, and then depending on what the planning board does, we may or may not need a special permit after that period is done. You know, if we don't need a special permit, we can start building in August. We'll be licensed. If we do, it changes the dynamics, but that's a different thing. Well, once we get all 3 of those, meaning we're good to go, building permits, CCC license, this, CPC is going to buy. I'm going to buy you guys the van. Okay.
Okay.
It's a good faith gesture. What happens year 7? We'll figure it out. Andrew and I will figure it out, but that's why I came.
With my review of this, I went back and forth with him a couple of times, and then I'm generally comfortable with the way it's worded, my position. The one thing I do want to clarify is the whole thing in 5 years for me is a complete revisit, not a let's guess now what we're going to do in 5 years. One, of course, we do have to find out what the cost of the town really is. It's the same reason that I believe this whole 5-year plan was instituted by the state, so they actually know what does it cost versus let's guess. And then either some companies kind of get buried with these costs and then they fail, or other towns realize that they have exceptional costs that they didn't get the appropriate to cover. So I just wanted you to know that if we go into this, and I still am representing the town in any form, my intent would be to sit down and revisit what's being paid and whether it may or still be a percentage versus a flat fee. I just want it to be out there. That's how I'm looking at it. It's just a let's see what it really is costing and what the effort is involved.
So are you saying that, are you thinking that in like year 6, okay, that first 5-year period runs out, so year 6, let's say that there's very little cost. Let's say it's run well, everything, very little cost. You'd want to go back and say, well, instead of $30,000 a year going forward, our cost is like $5,000 a year going forward?
Or our cost may be $70,000.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Well,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
So rather than making a statement now where we assume that $30,000 in 5 years is going to cover whatever costs we have to make via investment to do whatever we have to because of the industry and its presence in town, we'll reevaluate then. You know, rather than making any assumptions about what that is now. I'm not trying to, this isn't to say we're going to ask for more or less. I'm just stating at that time we'll know better, so I don't want to get too far into making guesses now at what that would be.
Right, no, that makes sense, but you're talking on a local level revisit, or are you talking on a state level revisit?
No, at a local level based on the state regs in place at that time.
Oh,
So we may, and that's right, that's in here.
Yeah.
But I'm also saying that if the state doesn't change any of the regulations, we would sit down and if we believe the 3%, based on whatever your production numbers are, is covering our costs and we can show you this is where we spent the money,
Yep.
then
I'm sure
we're not
you
going to
guys
ask
will.
to go less. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying is we're not going to say, oh, we need less than 3%. If we can justify where our money's going, whether it's towards a school resource officer to help with education in the school, and we find that that's helped us keep a flat line on potential underage use, or if we think that some of the money has gone in towards certain things that are beneficial to the senior center that may also be helping. Just these little pieces. I'm guessing right now the reasons and that's why I don't want to get too deep into this, but I'm guessing at what would our justifications be for that funding, but I don't want to guess at what that value is, because right now we're doing our best estimate with the 3%, both sides.
Well, the state just, that was their number.
You know,
so
and
we're
that's
not
why
even-
I
we're
think
not
the
even
whole,
estimating.
for 5 years, 3% is what we're gonna go with now.
Yep.
Some towns, I think, have even done 3 years and will revisit in 3 years, just because
I guess you could
they're
do that.
more comfortable thinking that the state might change regs in less than 5 years, and if that's the case, I like what we got, I like the agreement we have in place. I just don't wanna make it sound like there's a promise moving forward, because I don't think that'd be fair to you or to the town.
Well, and I agree with you, Matt, 100%. And that's the issue that you and I were looking at. Like, okay, how do we do this? How do we make this work? Because to look 6 years down the road, there's two ways to look at it. Okay, what, it's $30,000, or it's an assumption of how much does it cost? Maybe it's $5,000, maybe it's $50,000. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. And that's I'm comfortable having that discussion. But for purposes of this agreement, which is what is a component of what the state's requiring, I'm hoping that we can move forward with this and then move on that, but come up with an idea, not because it might take some thinking.
Oh, right. No, the way I look at it, don't get me wrong, is this addition of at the conclusion of the term, the agreement will either terminate or continue. The way I look at it is right now, did we keep the 30,000 after the first 5 years in the language of this agreement?
No, we had
So
to
it's
take
gonna
it-
terminate
Yeah,
if we
had-
don't sit at the table, is what I'm saying.
Right, we had to take it out because we were looking at it and saying, well, the states, legal counsel's like, well, the states, like, it's.
They
it's
don't
almost
want
a
more
different
than the
thing.
5.
Right, which is where the whole idea of like they said, nothing precludes us from making a donation. But obviously, and I get it, you guys gotta look and go, yeah, okay, this rate, you're sitting at the table right now telling us that about 6 years. But it's, making a gesture there, saying, okay, I'll give you the first year's donation up front. Let us try to figure out how to make you comfortable with. I mean, the reality is, in 6 years, if that facility is costing us $50 grand a year, I probably have much bigger problems. You know what I mean?
Or you are making a lot more money because you're causing, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I'm just saying your growth leads to town infrastructure growth.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That's all I meant.
Okay, so you're like, oh, now you have 6 greenhouses, now you got 24 vans going.
And therefore, maybe we need an extra patrol down there, or we need to increase our maintenance on the roads
I get it.
because you're getting a lot more traffic. That's all I meant.
I get it. So
And so it's not all just because, look, he's doing great.
well, that too.
Come share. I don't mean it that way.
I'm okay with that. That's why
Yeah, okay.
I do want this to benefit. I really do.
Yeah.
So,
Say, I ever reached out to the Cannabis Control Commission to ask, kind of like where their stance was in that 5-year thing, to try to get just a little bit of guidance from them, and they're basically boilerplate answer, well, consult your legal counsel.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, you guys are the ones that came up with this language, you had to have something behind that reason. Nope, we don't want to.
yeah.
There's no case law or precedent set.
Right.
So you are the only one that can answer this question.
Yeah.
Right.
CCC.
I've emailed them that question twice. Radio silence, nothing back. So all we could do is go to local council, try to make the overall thing good for Barry. So it's going to be a continued form of income. Whether through donations or coming up with language saying, okay, we'll look at it.
Yeah, I read all that stuff today. My understanding, short and sweet, state's basically saying, we can't talk about after 5 years because they've kept it at 5 years. So we understand we'd like to discuss it later. The point's moot for this issue. This is going to end at 5 years. I think we all agree on that. So as far as that goes, I'm happy with what you wrote. I still think the 3% is, as I say, generous and start at the top of the scale and just get right through it. And I have no issues with it. And I appreciate any further donations, such as a van. That'd be a fantastic thing. That's fantastic. But to this, all this other discussion, what happens in year 6 has nothing to do with this because the state's been pretty clear. If we stick an extension in or talk about it, they're going to kick this thing back in our face and we're going to delay everything all over again, which isn't good for anybody. So I think we drop it off where it is at 5, and I would say we move forward with it as it was presented. I would make that a motion.
Second?
I second the motion to accept this community agreement as recently revised.
Okay, any discussion, further discussion? Andrew, do you have anything? Ray, you have anything you want to add?
No.
Sam?
I don't know the details of this arrangement, but,
You just heard them.
well, I'm sure there's more.
Same agreement we had before, basically we just modified the
but-
donation, that's all.
But I'm seeing that you guys in the town, I'm seeing a new business owner coming to town. And it just happens to be a marijuana business, but it could be a car business, it could be any kind of a business. And I don't really, if the town tries to benefit in what I consider an exceeding way from a new business, if there are other businesses out there who want to come in, they'll know that the town benefited in an exceeding way. And from what the discussions that I'm hearing, seems to be it exceeds logic for me. So what I'm saying is that those new businesses who may think of coming in any type of business, they they may think a little differently about whether they want to come to Barry and occupy space to own, to participate in business. So I'm just saying, before you guys make decisions, that you need to think about a new business and the town need to work together symbiotically so that it becomes a fair relationship.
Can I address that?
And I don't think, and if other businesses hear about a fair relationship, they'll want to come into town, because that's our goal, is to bring in more activity in this town. So I just thought it was important that I say something, that we need to be fair all the way around, whether it's a marijuana business, or whether it's a shoe business, or whether it's a liquor store, or whether it's a third type of business. That's all. Thank you.
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, but it might be getting a wrong perspective too. The community host agreement is that agreement we needed to sign to say we were not opposed to him running this sort of business in town. Initially, we had a discussion a year ago about if we should ask for some payment in lieu of taxes, a certain percentage of sales, which some of us were more in favor of, but it went nowhere, and we ultimately just gave the no contest agreement. Since then, the state has said that we're not going to have a grow and sell place all at once. You're going to be a grower or a seller and split the licenses. And Dean is opting for the grow and wholesale. So even if this wasn't a nonprofit, which he's moving towards a nonprofit, if it was not a nonprofit, since it's wholesale, the product is still not taxable. So the only thing the town would stand to have for tax revenues from this business would be real estate taxes on the new property, which is fine for any business in town. So that we get from anybody. We were just hoping in the beginning that there might be something else in it for the town. The idea of bringing business places, like when some other city gets a Home Depot, is they get certain revenues and things from Home Depot that help them fund major purchase items, fire trucks, or big expending issues. We're not going to get a fire truck out of something like this, but you hope to have
a fire truck?
You hope to have some contribution back to communities. The fact that the business wants to be here, and they would hope want to help the community as well. Everything that Dean's talking about at his office, his wife, as he said, is very involved with the senior center, and they want to do something more, and that's their choice as business owners. Nothing to do with our agreement. It's the van he's talking about is not part of this agreement. That's just something he's planning to do otherwise. The state said we can barter for up to 3% of revenues when making this host agreement. Dean came in and offered us the 3% up front. We didn't start there and go back and forth. He came in and offered it. So we haven't coerced him. We haven't come down and looked for the maximum. We haven't tried to overtax him. This is a very generous offer from someone who wants to stay in town and do his business here. And I hope that does set a precedent for other people to say, hey, we should do something back for the town. Because we want to have business here, but we want to have business that also has to be beneficial to the town as well. And this clearly is going to be. So I like your concerns, but there aren't any issues like that here. This is very voluntary.
Thank you for your explanation.
Can I add to that? See, Sam, it comes down to negotiating styles. Okay? You and I have very different negotiating styles. I know exactly where you would have started, but I simply thought that this is something that's important. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what the state, that they finally gave us some guidance. I just didn't want to think it should be a long discussion. Let's just do it and we go. So I was not coerced, but I do understand your concerns, and thank you. The van is, that's Catherine's.
And this has been a year. This has been a year, and he wants to get going. So if you go right to the top, that moves it right along fast.
Yeah. So,
we're not going to argue for less, so it's going to go through pretty quick.
thank you, guys.
Otherwise, the
Okay,
agreement's
we
in
haven't had
place.
to vote yet.
We all changed our mind on that last meeting.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate working with us.
Thank you. Oh, there's plenty more work.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll see each other tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Rick was here today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
I remember.
We have a declaration of access property for the police department. Hey, I guess you've been working on this. Or Andrew,
well,
you have?
Yeah, so
Actually,
that was actually in the back.
yeah, just,
Okay.
I wanna say thank you, so, I don't know if all of you guys have had a chance to stop into the police station, our former police station. We're renovating one side of the building, the other side's gonna be different, but I'd like to thank, Andrea from the building department, spent a couple days down there helping us clean up, take stuff down, prepare for this excess, equipment. Jean Joel came down and spent a little bit of time and helped us, and Andrew and I don't know how many days we spent down there picking up and organizing, trying to get ready for the inmates to come in. And now it looks great, we're getting pretty close here.
So the count that I gave you guys, it's actually on the back side, after my report, that was pretty much a list of stuff that was in that police department area. Rather the big stuff, it doesn't really have any monetized value, but it's either going to be repurposed or tossed. If we kind of open it up to all the departments, come down, take a look at it, everybody's either tagged what they wanted, and if they don't want it, it's gonna be frozen.
A lot of it's already been moved,
Yeah.
so we have a couple things that are left to move, but.
We need to take any vote on this?
Just to declare the property listed as excess property so that we can properly dispose of it.
But we don't need a vote.
Yeah, you would just,
Yeah.
you do need a vote.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you decided last time, we'll still dispose of things.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
have
so
them make another effort.
So I would look for a motion to do that.
I make a motion to declare the old police station access property as indicated in the list and provided.
Second motion.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor? Aye. Okay. We have the Open Space and Recreation Committee. I guess Barb, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, the existing plan is a really comprehensive, thorough plan that a lot of good citizens of Barry got together and put together over the course of quite a while. And then there was the process of getting it approved through DCS. A lot of that is still usable. Here's some notes and details on just exactly what needs to be updated. The strategic planning part and the goals part of the plan, my wife has expertise in that area, and she's willing to, you know, work on that with us if we get that far. And Faye. Thank you, Faye. Basically, the second page in are the bullet points of what needs to be updated. And the last page that my printer printed sideways for some reason is basically guidelines for forming a committee for updating. This stuff is available through the DCS website, through the workbook for creating a whole plan. And a lot of times you refer back to the workbook for, you know, updating.
So what are your objectives in doing this?
Well, a few things come to mind. I haven't been here that long. Nornay Park is a fantastic place. There's some money available through that if we update. Also Felton Field. I'm not sure if the town received funding in the past through state grants, but if they have, then there's a follow-up process that we would be eligible again if we pursued that. I'm not sure if the state has spent any money on those two particular things, but there's also in there some money for infrastructure for drinking water. And We know we have some issues with some of the wells. I think that would be a possibility. And then there was a lot of goals in the last plan, the plan that needs the updating. I keep saying that. You know, we could look back to that and look them over and see if there's still currently something that the town wanted to pursue. For fiscal year 19, there was 6 million available. We're gonna miss that. We'll probably go for 2020. And you know, just see where we need it and try to bring it in.
Lands that we've taken, like we recently accepted land over near the well, that we plan to keep open because we don't want to build near our well.
Right.
We also took a piece of land from someone in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
That we may have no other use for it. So these are the kind of things that could fall into open space and maybe do something with it, or at least in the well they maintain it, some of these land so we can overbuild and stuff.
Yeah. And the best people that would have the answers to those questions, Greg, would be the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. And we're eligible for some grant time through technical assistance. You know, we could have them look at that and see if we could apply for the grant money for that specific purpose.
And then that committee would also oversee those sort of things. Say for example, the open land near the well. They may want to hay the field, do something to take care of it and keep it from being overgrown and not having with the trees out, whatever. I don't think whatever might happen on any piece of to upkeep it. Is that something the committee would, if they get the funding for, fine?
I think so.
Do that, or does that have to come back to us?
Well, it'd probably have to come back to you for approval after it's approved by DCS.
You organize through your committee.
Right. And,
You would have to basically.
you know, another good person that,
Well, the committee exists, right? It just expired and
it exists.
you do the same charge, I assume.
We would have to verify what charges or if a charge was or.
There might not have been a charge before, so we kind of just double check it. And then if the charge is to primarily develop the plan, then we might want to adjust it to say to develop and administer.
And how many people are we looking for in the committee? How many do we need to develop?
Well, it took upwards of 20 people to write the whole plan, which was an enormous amount of work. It seems like they have a time frame of about a year. I would suggest that possibly we could ask the folks that put so much time into this in the first place if they could come back, the way they were so close to this situation. You know, we could probably draft some letters. All their names are in the plan. If we could mail out some letters of interest or possibly get it in the paper, maybe, that, you know, some of those folks might come back. And then from that pool, maybe you fellas could pick a chair and a vice chair. And then at that point, we could probably take it off your plate a little bit, because it would be the job of the chair to organize and motivate, you know.
The only thing I mean, I pretty much support everything you just meant. It just, I think we're running a parallel path at the moment as well. Because
I see.
They just get a grant, and Hardwick got a grant for support of a chief planner and creating a town plan. Two separate economic development.
Yeah, so that's not really gonna be connected.
Which one's the economic development?
That's the Hardwick.
Okay, but we got the one to create a plan.
I should say, we have the economic development plan. So we have that SWOT analysis that, I have the.
I'm just trying to remember which one Barry got.
So Barry got the economic development plan.
Okay.
Hardwick got the economic development direction, but that's a regional, that covers the area.
And that's not so much about open space as it is usable space.
No, but just previously, the planning board did have a grant that helped them get a chief planner to help start building a direction. I don't know what they used for, how far they got with it.
I don't think it got very far. I think that was another.
But that's my point made, is if you don't have a town plan, you don't want a whole bunch of different people running independently, creating their own plans. So I like the idea.
Yeah.
But I do think you kind of need a bigger picture plan before you start running off with because sometimes they
Yeah.
interconnect, like if you want a certain open space plan,
Yeah.
and then someone else comes in with an economic development plan, and you clash on
Mhm.
certain borders,
Right,
we need to work through that, and that,
right.
it's hard to say
I
that
think-
falls on the town administrator, because in a way it falls on the planning board.
Mhm.
So there's a fine line between, we don't, in other words, what I'm saying is, we don't have a definitive, this is the center of all our plans. And we still don't have it, so we gotta, I don't wanna get too far chasing these
Right.
separate ones without finishing what is the town's vision moving forward as a
Right.
big picture.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But I don't wanna stop this either, it's just I want you to know,
Yep.
don't get too far before we
No.
can centralize some input from the various committees we're trying to do this with.
I think that funding that supported those two issues that you just mentioned was from a different thing than the Department of Conservation Services.
Agreed, agreed.
And, you know, the open space plan defines that it's for open space and recreation. So I don't see it would be stepping on any of those other issues.
Well, it depends
But-
on what you define as open space and recreation, because you may be saying, we would like to look for taking this area of the town and making sure it stays open space.
Mhm.
Someone else might be saying, that's a perfect place to develop economically, because it's not near anybody's
Right.
house.
So
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
there's a little bit of, we gotta have a centralized voice on that.
Yeah, a centralized voice that strategically plans for that specific purpose within that plan.
In this planning
No,
process, it
no.
calls for a lot of public input. So that's where those boards that are in charge, planning board should be part of the process, but that's where you gather that input to go, okay, we know that this is going to be a prime development site, so we're not going to designate it as a long-term open space conservation. You know, it's the job of the committee to really solicit all the exterior comments. I think the plan that you're looking at is more of a master plan that takes in both the open space, economic development, zoning, all these individual
fine.
ones.
Thank you.
But that master plan is the general guideline for all of those. It's not,
Yeah.
because otherwise they're all fighting each other.
Right.
Well, each
The
process.
potential lies for them to all be fighting each other is what I'm saying.
But you-
Because town input, I'm just trying to, depends on the subject matter as to who shows up. So people might not come to an open space meeting if they're concerned about economic development because they don't realize the relationship. And then economic development may not get open space people, so they don't really know because they don't have a centralized that generally understands the whole picture.
Right.
And says, I support that, but you might wanna know these people are thinking this, and then we gotta bring that together. And in a way, the planning board is that, but we're working on creating that, so they have something to refer to say, well, when we did have our public hearings, when they had the cheap plan thing going on, if they did,
Mhm.
these are the things we thought were the town's priorities, so we wanna make sure we don't drift from that.
I see.
And that's all I meant,
Mhm.
because in a way, the master plan really is don't drift from this, but let each one build their own thing and bring it together.
Right.
And that's gonna be a benefit of working with the RPA, because they're going to, if they're gonna be part of this process, and they're part of the economic development process, they're gonna know, they're gonna at least have somebody who's, we've sat at the table with both these groups. We kinda know what the vision, or what their independent thoughts on the development of certain parcels are. And then if the town down the road, has the money to go and develop a large-scale master plan, they can say, all right, on all these meetings that we did over the last 10 years, these were all of the ideas that came up. So, you're kind of setting the base, the infrastructure that could go into a master plan down the road. So, we had.
Thank you, Andrew. You have a really wide understanding of it.
The open space and rec plan is really kind of statutorily required every 7 years to make us eligible for this grant funding. So it does kind of, we can't really hold up that process to go, all right, well, we're gonna do an entire master plan in the open space and rec plan.
There's no requirement for a master plan?
There's no requirement for a master plan, that's community dependent. It's,
I also think that we're missing the picture on some of this, that when we're talking about open space, we're talking about more or less land control by the town. When we talk about master plan, we're talking about community development for others' lands, for how we want to see industry or business or residents grow and move and form the town. And that's sort of set up a master plan for how, we want more housing to push this way and business to kind of move this way, and this type of business here. And that's our master plan for zoning of the town, for how people use their own property. But the open space is more of what the town actually owns for open space. We're not gonna tell Joe Schmo, well, you can't build in your land, it's not open space. We're not gonna be doing that to anybody, taking their land away.
Right.
But in this area, we have a lot of open space, we have a lot of watershed land, protected lands and things. And those are the things that we can look at to, what do we want to do? Do we want to make trails? Do we want to have another Frisbee course? Do we just want to have a park? Do we want to keep it mowed and open, or what do we want to do? Do we want to plant trees somewhere? What do we want to do with our open space? And I see that committee is more taking care of our open space and forming a plan for our open space, and that will make the grant money available for us to do something without spending our tax money. And the master plan still, the master plan is gonna be how we want everything else to develop in town. And I don't really see it affecting the open space much, because I don't think we're gonna wanna build, at least not for any foreseeable future. The town itself is gonna start building on our lands anywhere, anything new anytime soon. And if we had to, we'd cross that bridge when we come to it. But,
Unless we secure the funding.
but still, I agree, we need to look at the charter first. I think it's a great idea, I'd like to see it move forward, I'd like to review the former charter and see if we want to modify it or keep it, and reinstate that at another meeting, at a different date. And then move forward, see how many people we want to get, how we want to advertise it, publicize it, and generate some interest in it. And certainly I challenge Bob, if you want to go and try to get some of those people from the other committee, get in touch with them, see if they'd be willing to come back.
Thank you.
I think that'd be a great idea, I can't tell you to, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And maybe visit this in a month again. Give us time.
Don't get me wrong, my comments weren't to even hold this back, it was,
No,
because it's
I see
gonna
the
be
potential.
a while before they have anything to act on anyway.
Right.
It was just, I wanted to make sure that they realize there is a little bit of, you gotta know what the left hand's doing, the right hand's doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's more the intent there. I was, just so you know, I wasn't trying to.
If we have an open land area, we say, we're gonna put a park here for the kids, we don't wanna have that zone, heavy industry next to it with smoke and pollution going over the park. So they're gonna have to, zone things and talk later, but I don't think it'd be direct competition for any use of land. But certainly strategies where we might wanna put, the public interacting with things close to certain businesses or industries, or, as we see with the basketball issue. You wanna have the parks in neighborhoods where kids can use the basketball hoop, but not too close, or the people are gonna get irritated from the noises. So those considerations are gonna have to be a joint effort no matter what.
Yeah.
But I think the committee is, it's a wise thing to get grant money back. Anytime we need grant money, we have to pay for it ourselves.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, anytime someone from town says, I would like to see what I can do to help the town, you're probably not gonna hear me say no. I'm gonna celebrate you and
Thank you.
appreciate the offer, because
Thank you.
we need people that are willing to do that.
Well, I finally had a little time to come down. I've been banging nails and doing roofs and everything up the new place, so finally can sit down and start looking at some paperwork a little bit. And I do have some experience in this area from my previous town. We preserved a lot of land over there. I worked closely with DCS before. I forget the woman's name, but I noticed she was the same one that's still doing it today. And there's an interest from East Quabbin Land Trust as well. She said she'd be willing to use her expertise and guidance in anything that we did try to pursue.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hold up on that.
Thank you. See you guys. Forgot my water.
I'm okay with the minutes now.
I didn't,
I'm okay with the minutes now, if you want to do those.
oh, okay, when we get ready.
No,
Yeah, that's fine.
I went through the CPC stuff today. I wasn't going through all the minutes. I'm like, I need to see if the tablet is dead. I'm like, oh crap. So.
Okay, I guess we can revert back to the minutes, approval of the minutes that have been prepared. Do I have a motion for,
Ready. I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes for July 17th, 2017, August 7th, 2017, August 21st, 2017, January 23rd, 2018, and February 5th, 2018, February 6th, 2018, February 14th, 2018, February 21st, 2018, and March 19th, 2018, some of which are executive session.
That's a separate motion.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the regular minutes for those dates.
I second that motion.
okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We have executive session minutes to approve as well.
Now, some are gonna be approved and released, or they're just gonna be approved and not released?
Correct. I think
The signer guy needs to know that part
And
before he signs.
On your agenda, it tells you which ones are which on the front.
Yeah, but I don't recall the topic.
We have, this says approve for release August 7th. And approve not released July 17th. Exemption 3, and July 17th, exemption 5. I thought there were more than 3 executive sessions in there.
Okay.
This one's the only one to release.
Yep.
I make a motion to accept the executive session minutes for August 7th, 2017 under exemption number 7, and then to release them thereafter.
Second the motion?
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
I make a motion
So
not the
these,
one I just did
No,
August 7th.
correct, that's the next one.
so these aren't releasable, why?
There's only one more
They're still
on
ongoing.
July 17th, I don't have a March 19th.
Oh, yeah, because that's the, okay, that one,
Yeah.
obviously.
That's-
But that's still on?
I make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of July 17th, 2017, exemption number 3, and July 17th, 2017, exemption number 5, neither of which would be released at this time.
Second the motion to approve those minutes.
Okay. Any discussion at all? None? Okay. Call for a vote in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that should catch us up. Okay,
Try to read this in, but.
okay, now we'll go back to the regular. special event permit, Greg's Restoration Car Show.
Yes, Craig's here.
Okay. Yeah, come on up.
The hot seat, as we always call it. I don't think it has a heater though, so.
Okay, you have a proposal for us to...
Yes, just doing our third annual car show, swap meet, just trying to do something local for our business. It's been great, past 2 years. About 200 show cars show up each year. About 40 vendors show up, and ranges from businesses to selling antique car parts. So it's a good thing for the town. Brings people from all over. We've had people from Vermont, Maine, Connecticut. We get a lot of interest from, we did a show back in just past week, we handed out flyers in Boston, so just bringing people to the town.
Look at all those signatures on that pre-approval sheet. I like that. I'm a smart aleck. I've been fighting. People come in with missing 1 or 2 signatures all the time, and I keep kicking them back out, so I love it when they come in. That's our goal, to have them completed.
This is our flyer, if anybody wants to see it at all or anything like that, so.
Actually, let's see. Actually, I kinda like
My sister designed it, so. It's got our tow truck on it for our logo for business.
that. Gonna have any helicopters landing there this year?
Maybe. That's a friend of ours, so.
He was just a visitor.
He's a visitor, he comes from,
You made some good excitement though last year.
Yeah.
Everyone liked watching him come in and go. He landed the chopper in the helicopter down in the middle of the field. And so the stopped and took off. So
I'd make a motion to approve the special permit for Greg's Restoration Car Show.
second.
Okay, good. Second? Okay, second. Discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. I guess we're all set.
thank you guys.
Good luck
See
with
you
the
there.
Put in the
event.
work to organize and make this happen. I appreciate it.
No
Can
problem.
I just have you guys sign this?
What day is this? When
This
is
is
it?
the 28th of April.
Soon
28th of April.
Where?
Belfield.
From Bill.
Yeah, would you like a flyer?
Oh, yeah, no.
Get down there and check it out, Sam. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Okay, we have some appointments to take care of. The Animal Control Officer.
Yes.
Trey, do you have those minutes for me to sign, or are they not?
They're all here. Do you want them right now, or?
Yeah, I can start picking at them, if you don't mind. I'm getting good at this multitasking stuff. Thank you. What's that?
Okay.
I hope so. Okay, so these are approved and not released.
August
Okay.
7th was the only one we were approved for release.
Right.
I didn't get one.
This
The ones
is
that weren't ready to go.
third, second.
Second.
Okay, we have the appointments for Animal Control Officer Jen Ford, Holly Huard, and Brian
Eovacious.
Eovacious.
That's what how dispatch pronounces it, so.
Okay, well,
I
that's,
think this came from Ellen, this request for these animal control officers that are, these are new
Yeah.
people that Rutland has hired on. And I think Ellen had brought this up to Andrew and I about them. They're appointed in Rutland because Rutland is the hub of our regional dispatch.
Mhm.
So they hire them and appoint them over there, but she was concerned that she thinks they should be appointed here. So I don't really know if they do or don't, so we'll just do it, just to,
yeah, I was wondering about that.
I think because it's an officer position, we have to appoint them to the town to have authority in our town. Although it's a dog officer, I think.
Depends on the agreement with
Yeah, I
Rutland.
think, I don't
We might
know.
have deferred that to them.
This is a guess. I don't know. hence the think.
I know we have to report it to, it's blanking now.
The
I know we have to
Department of Ag?
Yes,
Yeah.
Department of Agriculture, who our animal control officers are. So I think there's a minimum amount of appointment that needs to be done, at least on our part. There might be something in the agreement that says that, take care of who does the formal appointment. But this at least allows us to notify the Department of Ag. who's appointed.
And these have all been already appointed by Rutland.
Yes. Yeah.
I make a motion to appoint Jen Ford, Holly Heward, and Brian Eovashis pursuant to Rutland's appointment for animal control officers in this region.
Second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And the appointment of Eileen Clarkson to the Elder Bus representative. Need a motion on that.
It is.
We actually should
We
have this
take
the other way
resignation.
around.
Yeah, we should accept
You're gonna have
Gordon's.
two here for a few minutes.
It's gonna look like we kicked Gordon right out the door. No. You made the motion, or did you just bring up?
No,
the
I
agenda
just
item?
asked for the motion.
Oh. I make a motion to accept or appoint Eileen Clarkson as the elder bus representative for the town of Berry.
Second the motion.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have the resignation of Gordon Robinson. We have to have a vote to accept.
Aye. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Gordon Robinson as the elder bus representative.
Second the motion to accept the resignation.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, request to use the town property, the Band of Voices, and
There's, I think they submitted 2 requests.
Only 2, but 3.
yeah, they have 2.
Oh, just
Two requests.
3 requests. There were 2 on the same, yeah. What are the wishes of the board?
Just to make sure I'm either reading this right or I understand it right, just so we don't potentially create conflict. On their request for June 13th and June 16th, they also put a note in to have some time on June 15th for setup. I'm not sure if that means we should put that date into the approval process, because otherwise does it make it on the calendar and we book the 15th for something else?
Oh, we just do it as a blanket from 15, or from the
13th.
13th to the 16th.
That works.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, we usually, if there's groups that are a couple days apart and somebody,
What day
this
is the
isn't a
16th?
high
It's like
request,
something.
right,
Right.
but we just let them know we have another group in there and I set
next
them up to
group.
communicate
Okay, so
together.
Our group comes
Okay.
So that they just work it out.
Okay.
And that's fine, I just wasn't
Okay.
sure sometimes that we might want a little time the day before. It's like, well, that's a hard one to, well, you don't want to forget, that's all.
It's kind of like the one-day alcohol license where you give it the day before to the day after.
Yes.
It's
Right.
really a 3-day license.
So I guess I'll make a motion to approve the use of, wait, let me, when I read them, Town Hall from June 13th through June 15th, 16th.
Second the motion.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we have one more.
this might be a little busy. They're looking for Wednesday, December 12th and December 15th.
Yeah, I wouldn't do a blanket on that one, if they use it for
Right, because
right
that's
through
a,
it. I would just
I
give
know
them their
people are
dates.
slipping and then,
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to accept the use of Town Hall as requested by the Band of Voices for Wednesday night, December 12th, and Saturday night, December 15th.
So it's 12 and 16, was it?
12th and
12 and
15th.
15? Okay, second the motion?
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we have some license renewals. Seasonal liquor license for Colebrook Resort. This is what we usually deal with about this time of year.
Correct. Yeah,
We
so
did,
I,
yeah.
yeah,
Taxes.
what's that?
Yes. that's
Yeah,
what
they
I was gonna
have,
say.
they have $500 that's owed on their current taxes.
How about the water bill? That's always an issue down there. Big
No
issue down
issue.
there.
Yeah, how's it?
It's current?
Yeah, they only owe the town of Barry $500.
Well, that's a nice change.
Utilities, taxes, what have you. So this is for current, the $500. So I have,
One
I
thing-
need the board to do two things. I need them to approve the liquor license seasonal and also to approve, send, and sign this to ABCC.
Okay.
The renewal certification.
What is the wish of the board?
Are you saying those are two separate votes or just one vote and two separate signatures?
Sure. We can do that.
I'd make a motion to approve the renewal of the alcohol beverage license for Coldbrook RV Resort LLC and to approve the seasonal renewal certification that needs to be sent to the ABCC.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion to sign the permit and to send the form for the AB.
Discussion. Did we have some provisions on that in previous years because of problems? Do you remember?
On this liquor license?
Yeah. You know, because they had quite a few problems here 2 years ago.
There was special events they were having down there, I think. that
Was it
they-
the special
that
events,
They
or
had
was-
their TP thing with the bands and those got out of hand. I don't know if that was permitted for us for that, but I remember that's what got out of hand.
Yeah,
That's
you know
when-
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's when the prior board had established that special events permit. That's
Yeah.
where that all.
'Cause of the
kind
public
came
impact,
from.
yeah.
Yeah.
The liquor license has the dates that it's seasonal and the
Okay.
hours, but
Yeah,
I can
we-
double check that, Charlie.
What?
I can double check that and let you know.
Okay,
there
if
was
it's,
any-
No, we held them up last year for the taxes and water bill and stuff.
yeah,
They weren't current
no, I
on
don't have any problem letting it go ahead, just,
You can amend the motion if you'd like to say, and if there were any special provisions, then
Yeah.
it continue,
that's fine.
just to cover it in case there was.
That's okay, but you made the motion.
I just wanted to double check. The first one was the alcohol beverage license issued by the town of Barry.
To be
Correct.
consumed on premises.
Second one was a retail license renewal.
No, so what this form is, Matt, is if we decide to not renew any licenses, this is where you would put those in. We only have one seasonal license, and that is Colebrook. So we're approving them, so nothing else. Or if like a licensee fails to renew with us, they go on this list and we send this to ABCC, but we have none that will be entered on here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just confused though. The alcohol beverage license to be consumed on premises, but then on the back of it, there's a retail license
No.
renewal.
So that's their renewal form.
But it's a retail license, not an on-site consumption license, which I thought were two different licenses.
Can I see that?
So that's where it goes into the license type underneath it, where it says license class, seasonal license type, hotel inn holder.
Right.
And the license category of all alcoholic beverages. The retail license renewal form is blanket.
I don't know, what I'm
for
saying
the
is,
state.
if you
That's-
look at the license we just approved, before that,
Mm-hmm.
go to the page before, that's not a retail license, that's an
This
on-site
is-
consumption license.
But
It's
it
not
is
the
a-
same.
It's a retail. You're allowing
And
them.
the second is saying it's a retail, which usually is drink and then leave. Am I wrong?
No.
No.
That's what I'm trying to make sure I
Right,
understand,
right.
that's all.
That's just the name of the form at the top. It's not, it doesn't designate it as,
So that's not
So-
specific to alcohol
Well,
when
it's
they say
considered
retail.
retail because they're
So-
selling, they're pouring for sale drinks.
As opposed
that's,
to a.
that's where it goes into the license type. It doesn't matter if it's a package store or a restaurant, that's designated under the license type. No
Mhm.
matter what, it's always going to say retail license renewal, no matter which
Renewal.
one.
Okay.
'Cause that's
It
a
goes
state
into those
license.
license classes.
This is the state. form
That's the
that
state
these-
side, that's a
that this-
retail liquor license.
Everybody
Okay.
has to sign,
Yeah.
yeah, so every one of the licenses we get say retail, because it is a retail.
They're selling.
All
to
right,
the
and
cons-
that's
they're selling
fine.
to
I
the
just wanted to
consumer.
double check, 'cause it,
For consumption on
Well,
I
site.
knew
Or to
there
the
was a
consumer,
definition
I
between
mean-
one type and another, but I didn't
Right.
realize where it landed.
That's
It's
where
not in the
li-
title.
Right,
Yeah.
the license
Yeah.
type is where that falls.
Correct.
Thank you.
Retail generally just means is that's
Well,
where
I
they
have no
find these
change to
selling.
the motion.
If it's
Okay.
not retail, it's
Well,
usually not
it's-
taxed.
Well, they have wholesale and retail.
Right.
The
So-
state licenses.
And wholesale's pretty
Correct.
heavily regulated how that goes and where it goes. And
But that's not,
but a
appro-
different.
that's not a local approval.
No, it's got nothing to do with
Wholesale's
us.
not.
Okay, with that discussion, I'll call for a vote in favor.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
So I just need, before we move on, signatures on both of these pages.
And we have common victular licenses for the Barry Mill Restaurant, Barry Sportsman's Club, Mullins Tea House. Do you have to take these separately?
You can do them all at once, that's fine.
Just the three of us. I make a motion to approve the common victular inn-holder license for Berry Mill Restaurant, Berry Sportsman's Club, and Mullins Herbal Tea House.
Second the motion.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
So this is all the minutes for the.
I'll make sure they go down.
So the particular reasons like this certain meals.
Yes.
They're the
Excuse
one
me?
that was
Wasn't quite right.
Did they do a second
Didn't do
booth for
that
the
one.
bar side?
Something else up that way.
Barry Mill, because they run the straight bar too.
Yeah, you guys have approved that back in December.
Okay.
Okay, now we have Spring Hill Salvage
Because that was
Motor
the-
Vehicle
they
License.
had to get those on before.
I make a motion to approve the motor vehicle renewal license for Class 3 license at Spring Hill Auto Salvage.
Second the motion for the salvage license renewal. No, their motor vehicle license renewal.
Okay,
For the salvage.
discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have an issue of someone who wants to donate some land. I think that's what they want to do. Andrew, do you?
I don't have too much additional information
Yeah.
to add. This was submitted to the assessor's office, so. I guess it's up to the board whether or not you guys want to put this on the town meeting warrant for acceptance.
Why would we be interested in this land?
I do not have that information for you.
No, it just came to us,
Yeah.
what's in your packet.
So it's an unsolicited, here, would you like to buy my land?
Pretty much.
I don't. See, now, if our open land committee was here and they had grant money, they might buy it. But I think we've got enough land we've accepted and taken, and I don't wanna look into buying something, especially because we weren't looking for it, and we know, once again, nothing about the land.
Size of the land.
We don't
We wanna
know.
pay the money to have.
Right, and then we don't know what we're getting into again.
No, that's.
Dead bottom center. Well, it says up here it's non-buildable, it needs a variance, so it may be too small of a lot to do anything with in an R80 zone, so it's.
Well, looking at the map, there's a lot of wetlands all around it.
22 acres, where are you reading that?
Yeah, 948,000 feet. Right here, Matt, in the back.
Oh, on the drawing, I was reading the assessor's thing.
But it looks like a lot of wetlands in there. And probably a lack of road frontage.
I would say if anything, refer this to the Conservation Commission, ask
The
them if
dead
they
end.
have any.
Dead end road is very limited road frontage, I think.
Yeah, I don't know why we'd want to consider spending money on a piece of land unless the committee was, or someone in town was looking for it to build something on or to do something with it. If it came from a committee or from a group in town that said we ought to look into getting this land because we could use it for X, Y, Z, then I'd want to look into it, but just unsolicited, I don't have any desire to look into this at all.
The only thing I would look at again is, I would recommend just getting some more input, especially from that potential open space and recreation committee.
Well, it's not a gift
Great place
either.
to send the kids to go look for frogs on a school vacation. I mean, you know, if it's, you know what I mean?
But they want us to buy it for 27 grand, they don't want to donate it. They want us
Well-
to pay them $27,000.
Well, we wouldn't be able to do that. I think that, yeah, if the town was gonna take it, it would have to be by donation. We couldn't do it, because otherwise, we can't just have somebody come up to us and go, here, buy my property for 27,000. The town would have to put an RFP together to basically describe the property and then offer a price for it, a fair market value for it. Then basically you need somebody to give you a fair market price on it. So
One
there's
would-
no way
one
we're
would
I'm
paying
thinking
for
the
this
27,000 is what he bought it for
Yeah,
in
that's what I'm saying.
2012, not what he's asking. He hasn't set a number on the table yet, he just said,
Oh, I get the impression.
sell this land back to the town, which, again, if it's like, just to put it, he's like, yeah, we'll buy it for $1, or whatever the donation, or however that works, it's, I don't know enough about the property though, so I would like to look into it more, just so I'm better educated on it, but I'm not necessarily saying
And also,
pushing it either.
and it could be he bought it for 27, he wants to sell it for a profit, or he could want to donate it, I don't know, but, I see you're right, this is the 27,000 is when he accepted the deed to it from.
Yeah, we'll just take this under.
There's a lot of land there still though, that's not in wetlands, if this is any accurate.
It's very limited.
You only got a 100-foot buffer from there, and then
Very limited frontage.
300 feet.
At the end of Jackson Lane.
Yeah,
Oh, right. I'm not saying
Dead
it's,
end road.
What we should probably do is refer this to the Conservation Commission, ask them if there's any interest there. If we decide to have any additional discussion on this, and especially if they're looking for a purchase price, we should take this under executive session, because it
Mhm.
might be, that is one of the
right.
exemptions, this discussion of acquisition of real property.
Agreed.
Okay.
Table till we get more info.
So yeah, I wish we had an open space committee. That'd be perfect for them.
Okay.
And they'd have grant money if they wanted to look into getting it.
With-
That's what it's for.
With that, I've come to the end of the regular session. We had some executive session stuff to deal with, but did the board members have anything they wish to bring up? Before we,
A little bit. As part of the town administrative report, I just had a, we didn't get to it last time because it was a midnight meeting. More specific to that, CMRPC issued thing, working with,
Yep.
yeah, this plan and the agreement between the two towns and what would be what on the Hardwick's
Okay, the
portion. They
yes,
had one
yes.
looking for a regional agreement. My bigger concern on that was it sounds like there's potential costs and we'd have to get back into budgeting money for something that I don't understand what those costs, based on how it's represented here, would be.
So, at this point, I don't think anything is committed past the $90,000 that was appropriated for this position. If it's successful, or if they have anything going forward, then the towns could consider moving forward with it. Kind of talking with Hardwick though, their commitment past what grant funding is kind of up for question. I don't think that they're looking to add this as a permanent position in their budget. So I would be skeptical to believe that this might go beyond just what the grant is going to fund. So I think at this point, it's just, we'll see what that turns into, and then kind of go forward as, we'll see how it progresses.
Okay.
It's tough at this point to say, no, we don't want to be considered as part of it. Just knowing kind of what the region's economic situation, I don't see this as being the, something that becomes part of every town's budget moving forward.
Okay. I was kind of thinking the same
Yeah.
thing, but I didn't know if it was thought I read a clause where I was like, all of a sudden you're getting pinned into certain commitments, and I'm like, I'm not getting there
Yeah,
yet.
I mean,
It's,
leading into that agreement, I know that the town of Hardwick kind of just put that, kind of just at the last minute kind of reached out to each community and said, we're putting this grant together. If we are successful, are you interested as being a partner in it, but not committing any funds? And I think that that's pretty much, it was kind of like a, hey, the grant opportunity is out there, we're going to throw it in just for consideration. They were surprised when they got it, so.
oh, okay.
I don't think that they're really committing themselves to any more than what was awarded.
All right, perfect. That's all I had questions on that.
Okay.
I'd like to take a minute too for old business / selectman report. I started rewriting the proposed bylaw I had for our last special town meeting for the removed officers, the recalled officers. I've changed the language a bit and just got the rewrite underway. I've talked to Ellen about it, and she made some suggestions that I might want to look into the current recall rules. For example, the state has an exception, a state law that's passed, that when you have a recall election, you can have a concurrent recall and replacement election. So at the same time, you can vote the office and the recall. And if the recall should fail, then the vote for the office position is moot. But we can put that into effect, so in the future, if these things should happen again, we don't have to go through 2 elections, and we don't have to have a 90-day span with a vacant office. So the office would be removed and replaced at the 1 election point. So I'm going to try to fit it appropriately into the town bylaws to repeal that section and replace with the other state section that's already state approved. So it's going to just take some reworking. So I'm going to try to look at the sections and talk with Ellen of what I want to change. Add in the section I did, I've modified so far, saying similar if somebody is recalled and they stepped out because they recalled, they stay out of office for 3 years. And no appointments to boards or committees. I didn't say appointments in general because that would preclude people from working if they had employed.
Right.
So I said they couldn't be appointed to boards and committees, and if they had an unpaid stipend at that point, that's forfeit as well from that point forward. And you'd stay out of office for 3 years. And if you should be removed by a popular vote or ballot, then you'd be out for 5 years. And I left it at that. I didn't go permanent, and it's cleaned the language up so it addresses that when you're recalled, you're immediately out of office and you're immediately taken out of appointed positions and you can't serve in them. And then the two exceptions were if you resign under those terms and if you're voted out. So that I think is cleaned up. It's more concise, neater, easier to read. But now I've got to see if I want to fit it into the existing rule and modify the existing rule, which we want to modify anyways because of, it's silly to have an election and wait 90 days till we get another election and leave the office vacant. So the concurrent election's a smart thing to do. It may take tweaking other election rules that we have as well to make that happen in a timely manner, or it may take extending the recall election a little bit to make sure there's time for proper notice to have the
Right.
So that's why I kept it separate before, but I'm gonna try to work it in as one, so we're not adding more bylaws if we don't have to.
Yeah.
And then I have another one I'm working on, which I would hope at our next meeting I can put this on the agenda, and another rule I'm hoping for on the agenda. Something that's troubled me is finance committee appointments. I would like, because the finance committee is supposed to be, for Andrew and for us, a reference panel. I'd like in the future us to have a chance to affirm the appointments of the finance committee. It can still be made by the moderator, but we may have a chance to vote whether or not we want to accept that affirmation.
I think that's a bylaw. The appointment for finance, I believe, is
It's
a
actually,
bylaw.
it's.
This is what I'm
state
talking
reg.
about.
The
I'm talking about
moderator
another
appoints.
bylaw modification.
No, it's a state law. The moderator appoints the finance committee in order to separate the select board and the finance committee to have, that way the finance committee isn't determined and controlled by the select board, because it's supposed to be a sounding board and be able to tell you if they don't agree with your budgeting. So the state
It's-
said the moderator appoints. We only appoint if the moderator is vacant, that position's vacant.
I think you'll find that it's
That's how I read
the
it.
state recommends the moderator or sometimes an administrator make the appointment. It's
Okay.
up to the town to generate a bylaw for who will make those appointments. So it's still.
I may be wrong.
It's
Okay.
still, I believe, and I'll find out when I get into it. I believe it's still a town bylaw, but, you know, one person picking the committee, if you also read into our selectmen's guide, the idea of the finance committee is to pick people with financial backgrounds, accounting, banking, investing, people with that sort of background, because obviously investing plays to our bonds. Accounting is very important for what we keep track of. You know, banking's the same thing. It's all these things that are money handling backgrounds. And that's to give us the educated reference panel that's gonna help guide us through these things. And I don't think we've necessarily been getting people that have those qualifications that really make them helpful to us. And I'd like the ability to be able to look at the appointments. Now, maybe it's not us, maybe we have to have a panel, or maybe they have to be affirmed by the administrator, but I'd just like a second affirmation. So it's just not one person's designation, because I don't think that we're always gonna get the best people the way it's running. I'm not, frankly, I'm not happy with some of the appointments, and then that's clear. That's why I'm discussing this. I think there needs to be a little more say than one person's in this.
The only thing I have to say on that is, obviously, it's not like the moderator's had much of a choice. He's only had one viable applicant each time a spot opens, by our bylaw.
Filling a spot with a bad choice is I don't think preferable over leaving it open until someone good comes along for it. And you could also, you know, when you look into our guidelines for what we do, when making appointments or looking for these things, it's suggested that we pursue and ask people to fill them, not wait for volunteers. Sometimes you're gonna get the best person by saying, look, I know it's asking something of you, but we could use your help in this, and you'd be surprised that people would probably step up if we made those requests.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more of an effort on that part, rather than filling the seats just because somebody wants to fill the seat.
It's not my law.
The only other
It's town bylaw that, right?
the state reg says it's bylaw that rules.
A state reg does not have, is silent on who makes the appointment. It's through the town's bylaw.
We could
I
do,
read it as,
we could do it
we'll talk
ourselves.
later, it's not a big deal. The
I
only
believe
thing
we
I
could
wanted
do it
to bring up
ourselves, because
is,
it's our reference board. We could pick the ones we saw, we could pick our own council if we wanted to, but that's not how this town's done it. And
Well, the
I'm
bylaw
just-
states that the moderator makes the appointment, that's what you.
Faye, I understand how a
You just
bylaw
need
works,
to-
I'm talking about modifying a bylaw. We can propose to modify the bylaw to say, you know what, we'd like to pick our own finance committee from now on. And if the town agrees with that modification, that would be a change of bylaw, and that is what I'm discussing. So I do understand it's a bylaw, and I do understand how it works and how the change works. The difference we're talking about right now, Matt and I, is whether or not the state has sanctioned that it should be a different party or not. I think they've made those suggestions, and I read the same suggestions, but I think you probably took them as a stronger suggestion than I did.
well, yeah, I
But-
thought that they were defining the roles. And I thought one of the definitions of the moderator's role was to appoint the finance committee. But I'll get to that another time, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think it was
But
phrased
what I'm
typically
trying to
as-
get to here has nothing to do with who's doing the appointments. It's more about, we don't have a bylaw, and I do think it would be a good one, is specifically on certain boards, when a vacancy is open, there should be an open period to request applications. So in other words, if there's no applications in the books for people that want the position, and then someone leaves, the first person to apply should not necessarily be the first person to get it. Kind of like an employment opportunity. 10 days
Right.
in-house and then we go out, but there's this like open window. You can't just take the first person that applies. You've got to give enough people time to
Exactly.
know there's a position and the chance to apply.
As
Or
I
even
said.
like you're saying, the chance to go
To-
ask someone, would you consider? They get 3 days to consider. They can say, yes, put my name in the hat. And then you have 3 or 4 people you're looking at, not just the
Exactly.
first. I'm just thinking that might be.
That's what I said.
something
I'd
to
rather,
include
I'd
into it
rather
as
see the
well.
seat empty for a little bit until we get someone qualified, then just fill it. And then when the qualified person comes, it's already full. I'd like to have that time. It needs to be reworked a little bit some way, and I'm just starting to look at that. I haven't written anything down yet, but I'm gonna try to get something down so that we can
Okay.
discuss, as we agreed before, we'll discuss a recall petition. I'm gonna get as far as I can. I'll drop it here on the desk and we can hash it out and see how to change it, because my single ideas are not gonna be as good as the board will put together. But I'm trying to get us a good starting point, and I will do a little more research, Matt, too, as the legality of changing that. If it can be us or a different committee. I understood we could have someone else appoint as well, but it is a town bylaw and it must be changed on the town floor at an annual meeting. This is why I'm discussing it now, to try to prepare this. If we're happy with it in the next meeting or two, we can put something together for the warrant for town meeting, to make that modification.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm just giving you a heads up to what I'm working on. I'm not totally idle, but somewhat, and I will bring more to the board to consider and get involved in a more constructive manner, I hope, in our next meeting.
Thank you much.
Okay. Andrew, do you have anything else?
The only thing I needed a quick action from the board that the economic development plan, I do have the agreement between the town and CMRPC. I just need a vote and signature of the board in order to execute that get that started.
Question for you, sir.
Yes.
Do you believe what they're offering is going to provide you $10,000 worth of services in deliverables?
I would hope so, but
Boy, that sounds like a no.
the grant was very, what the grant offer was very specific as to what kind of, what we were gonna get for those services. So it was basically, here's the money, do it for that cost. Yeah,
I just see something that says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, they're saying they're gonna get you through like phase 1 of 2 phases.
Right. we're not committing
And
ourselves
we
to
just
pay-
did that with the chief planner, and then we walked away and we're still wondering where we're gonna get to a master plan. Nothing against the planning board,
Right.
nor with the amount of time the chief planner that was assigned by CMRPC could give us. I'm just curious.
I think when you look at the breakdown of what the estimated cost, of what each cost goes into it, and what the, what's produced for each one, I do think that it's economically, what the cost would be to perform those tasks. We didn't get a ton of money to do this, so I do think it's, it's state money, kind of, the best way to put it. I think it'll develop.
And again,
Great
nothing against
baseline.
CMRPC, but does the grant say you have to use CMRPC to use the $10,000?
They prefer a regional planning authority as part of this. Either that or the Collins Center would be the other people that they recommend. But typically they kind of point toward a regional planning authority to do most of this. I mean, you could get a quote from a private vendor, but I don't think that the private vendor would provide as much of a scope.
So this is
I
strictly.
bet you give a graduate student $10,000 to do their thesis and create an economic development plan for you. You get a lot further than any of these other groups. That's just my thought.
Yeah, but it might not be as comprehensive as my concern, because
I think you'll get a lot more for $10,000 from an individual than you will from someone stopping in once a month for 6 months and saying we're done. I'm just thinking it out loud.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to beat the people up. I'm just trying to say, based on what we know the effort is to create this plan, it's a lot of time investment. And that's why I think Andrew's correct. The way CMRPC kind of laid out their numbers and gave you the 5 or 6 breakdowns for the budget and where it's being spent. Yeah, it's easy to say that's kind of a fair value. But there's a part of me that, I don't know how else to put it. There's a part of me that's gotten used to, yeah, that's a fair value because we're used to just paying outrageous amounts of money for service.
What I do know is that typically a report like this might even cost more. The reason why they're able to make some sort of some value to this is because at the same time they're doing a QEMP survey, so they're planning on using a lot of the data that they gather for that to go into this report to save on the total number of hours, because the real way that they kind of break down these costs is the number of hours for staff time. They assign a specific value to the hours that they plan to dedicate to each one of the deliverables. So I know that they're looking at using some of the hours from the QAMP survey to get a lot of that baseline analysis as part of this.
Are they a public entity?
Quasi-public.
So they're not, are they required to provide public records if requested?
I think so.
I'd just like to know that better, because again, if they're gathering all that data for QEMP, how much is it actually being provided and how much is it just they're holding it, making recommendations and then presenting their summary analysis? Something I'm curious about. And if it's not something we can just, because we've done business with them, ask for it and just expect them to give it because they don't have to, then I would like to better know our relationship with them.
Do you have in mind anywhere you'd like to look for a grad student to get an idea of what somebody might be interested in doing this and not interested in what they might charge, or what they might do for $10,000? Have you any thoughts to where we'd look for such a student?
I'm not suggesting WPI, but I'm just speaking of a similar program WPI does with people that are trying to do what they call their MQP, which is their third of 3 major projects they got to do to graduate. And they do a lot of programs, and every year they have an outreach says, we got these graduate students, or these ones looking to get their bachelor degree, not graduate students, that need to do this MQP. And a lot of businesses and even the city of Worcester will approach WPI, say, hey, we have something we would like to see what we can accomplish. Can we work with you? And if so, what would be the budget to accomplish that? One example is we're working with them for like the landfill solar we did. We're getting a structural engineer to do a design and analysis to put a sign on the side of the landfill slope that can be seen from 146. I think it's gonna cost us like $5,000, maybe 10,000 in just materials, because they design it and then they gotta build like a quick little model or construct. I mean, there's not a lot going in that. Most of that money, of course, is running the group, help fund the whole program, but you're getting a structural design with calculations that pretty much tell you this is what you need. So whether you go to Holy Cross or Clark or someone that's more business-oriented college and you look to see if they have these programs, that's how you do it. Or, I mean, for all I know, Anna Maria has a economic business I don't know the colleges well enough and what their focuses are, but that's what I would suggest is you go there and say, hey, do you have, it probably won't work for this as a timeline, I'm sure, and everything, but it was just a question I had, because sometimes you give that to someone, they set 6 months aside, and literally they come to you and say, here's your plan. And what you do is you look at it and you say, okay, I got some holes to fill. But your whole outline's there. You pretty much just take it and you can revise it to modify as you need. But it's not, here's a table of contents, now you go fill it out.
Does the grant money have to be spent starting at a certain date or by a certain date, or both? Like,
Yes.
because they have a spending line here.
Yes, you have to spend it, I believe it's within 1 year of receipt.
That may be enough time to look into it, if we, at least it gives us a minute to ask.
I understand also, I'm
It's
bringing up
a
some
risk,
discussions
but
that
it's-
might undermine planning that's been going on with the plans for the use of this, so I'm not trying to undermine that or
Part of
mess with our current relationship with CMRPC. I'm just,
Part of the thought too is that with this last line where it says the report could serve as an economic development plan or an economic development chapter of a master plan. So if we do end up going forward and doing a townwide master plan, we at least have that chapter. That chapter is going to be done, because I don't
the
think
phase
that we,
1 report should provide that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's part of phase 2.
Right, phase 2 is the $70,000 grant that we need, after they give you a table of contents with phase 1.
I mean,
I'm just being wary, that's all. I'm being wary with what are we gonna get from this.
I can certainly say there's a risk with the
Even if
grants.
it's a table of contents and it's a guideline, we can probably still grow and work with it. But we just gotta do that.
I would just hate to, try to go with one source, have them develop this plan, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, we end up going and doing the master plan, then pulling this out and going, well, that's not the direction, that doesn't seem to fit within the direction that we want to go.
Well, either way, I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean, it's
sure
tough to give you
that's
a
gonna
good answer.
occur no matter what when we're
Right,
done. We're
right.
gonna wonder if there's a second guess involved, but.
And just because their first cost estimate, the timeframe's April to May, like, they need to go now. I'm always uncomfortable when I get something that's like, we need to move on this now. I never like that. That's the reason I would not.
Right.
You know, I mean, is there harm to make a call to a college or two and ask and say, hey, do you guys have any students that do this kind of thing that need the time? And like you said, we may get a lot more effort for the money. But we also have to consider the quality of effort of a student that's studying, not graduated yet, not done, may or may not be on the tutelage of a TA or a professor. They may be on their own versus, a corporation that's doing this on a large scale, so.
And I'll mention my last thought and then I'll say no more. Some that know me realize I can be a little bit paranoid about too much state and federal push down into what local communities can do.
Don't get Charlie
And
going.
sometimes I feel like CMRPC is somewhat of a state arm, and a lot of the push for CMRPC to continually be the economic development grant person here is because they're doing it for every other town in the region, and they're trying to create a certain guideline that everybody will follow, which
In
is pretty
their
much,
image, yes.
you're gonna do what the state
Yeah.
says, not necessarily, here are your options, how would you like to proceed? Versus, this is what you should do. And I think you can handle that if you know that's what it is, and you've gotta be willing to come back and say, is that because I have no other option, or is that because that's what you believe I should do? And if not, what are my other options? You know, you gotta be able to go back to them and say, that's not enough. Because that's the same report you gave to the town 2 towns over, and you haven't spent $10,000 on us yet. You just changed the name of the title in the town that you were giving it to, and you got your admin percentage through funneling the grant through you to us, and you're covering your budget, but you're not necessarily providing a service to this town. And that's something we would need to, I'm being a very much devil's advocate here. I'm not speaking to individuals with CMRPC or their actual effectiveness, or I'm not trying to hurt the relationship. I'm just saying these are a little bit of the questions that are always in the back of my head is, what is the quality of product we're getting? And at what point do you go back to the one that you're always going to, the well you always go to, and say, is this water still clean? Or am I just used to this is the only water I got, so I just keep going back? And you gotta be careful, because maybe it's the only well, so whether it's clean or not, it's the only well you got. Because I know we rely on CMRPC to help us get grants, help us know that what grants are out there. I mean, so I know there's a balance, so I'm not trying to, I just think it's worth discussing. And I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on. So unless we gotta act on it right away, I would at least rather table it to the next meeting, so we can think about our options.
What do you think about it, Charlie?
Yeah, we can,
If you're okay with that. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
I'm
think we
fine
gotta
with that.
act, I won't
I'm
ask to
fine with
table
that.
it, but.
I don't like acting on the spot. I don't like that it needs to be done now.
okay, I'm fine with that.
But do we want to try to reach out and just out of curiosity to college, or do you just want to, I mean, if we're gonna.
I'll see what I can do. If I get
say,
some contacts, I'll bring some information back.
if we're gonna delay it, we should delay it because we're looking. If we're not gonna look, then what's the point of delaying? But I don't like when it comes like, well, we gotta do this, and, you know, the very relatively vague bullet points what they're gonna do. We really, like you said, we don't know what they're gonna do for any of these phases. We don't know what portions of this are already done. Like map includes, you know, maps and report. That, they probably already have that done. So, you know,
Usually what they'll do is if it's not already there, they'll just tell you, you gotta get it. Like if they want a map of the whole water distribution in town and all we got are the main lines, well, you gotta finish this map. Well, we can ask the water department for that map and know where we need to continue it. We don't need CMRPC to say that. So I'm just saying, we gotta think it through a little bit, and that's more zoning stuff, that's not necessarily economic development, but I'm just saying, and I don't disagree, that we can't ask Andrew to do everything, so I'm not saying, oh, why can't you just do this, Andrew? But
he's got nothing to do all day. He just-
these are means to give him support,
playing
and I
video
recognize
games.
that. I just wanted to think it through a little bit, if that's okay.
I think we should, yeah, I'd like to see.
And I will see if I can get some more information from whatever sources I have, and if I get something to add, I'll share it before the next meeting. I'll send it to Andrew, and, you know, if he thinks it's,
Noteworthy, yeah.
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna table.
Okay, anything else to come up? Okay, I guess with that, I've come to the end of the regular session. Dennis, did you have anything for us? Just watch. Okay, we're pretty well done. We have some executive session matters to deal with, and then I will need a motion to go into executive session. And we have
So
three.
does this motion have this
this is one executive session after the next, after the next. So when you make this motion, you have to say, we're going to go into executive session, leave and go back into another executive session. Do I have to map the whole process out, or just, we're going through three and we're not gonna go back into regular session when we're
Under
done?
this one, that you're making a motion for an executive session and an executive session following this one. When we exit and go into the next one, same thing, that's all.
Okay,
Because
so I
you
do
cite
have to
the
map out
exemptions.
all three and then say we're not coming back to
Because
open
you cite the
session.
exemptions. That's my only concern, because you're citing all these.
So we just
But
go
we
into
will
executive
be-
session, and then when we're ready, we'll say we're gonna leave this session and move into executive session
Yes,
under
but-
exemption.
Good night.
Good night.
Right now, you can say that we will be tabling at the completion of 3 executive sessions, because we're not going to be going into
Adjourning.
open session
Yeah.
at the end. Gotcha.
Okay, we're going to be going into, I make a, yeah, is it a
Motion.
statement or it's a motion? I make a motion to
You
go
have to
into
roll call
executive
vote.
session per MGL, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exemption 3, to discuss strategy with respect to the police union negotiations. When that is completed, we will exit executive session and then re-enter executive session for the same exemptions of with respect to a Sable versus Town of Barry legal situation. And then we will exit that executive session and enter a third executive session, same exemptions, to discuss a second legal issue, Rogowski versus the Town of Barry. When we are done with that, we will exit executive session and adjourn the meeting. Did I get that right? I'm feeling almost proud, like I got that right.
I second that motion with the addition that I will be exiting prior to the third executive session.
Okay. Okay. I will have a roll call vote. Favor?
One.
Aye.
Subject to,
The way I stayed, because I wanted to finish this, is that you guys did a great job.
thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Glad you're enjoying it.
Have a good one, Sam.